As far as after effects, can you relate anything, I guess you'd say later on in life, versus start with this one, like PTSD, mental health, anything, medical effects that you may think may be related to the incident?
What I could tell you is this, and then we could go into that further, is both Adrian and I have been granted disability from the United Department of Defense, stating that during that event we were injured by whatever we encountered, which if you look at Project Condign was some of the evidence that we used and some other documents that were used also in this that showed that we had something happen to us during that exposed event that related to our injuries and that we are being compensated and treated for it today. So even though
Like,
they tried to cover it up at first, so
yeah, so to point out to everybody that's listening, that's one of the instances the government is kind of on paper taking this thing seriously. After the incident, what did you have to deal with as far as not even just I mean, as far as everyone burying it, and then you not having a way to get your benefits to deal with things? Would you
well
like to talk
that
about
we
that?
yeah we that's a long story because when it first happened, I was an airman, first base, didn't really care. I didn't understand it, didn't want to deal with it. They were taking it serious at the base. When we went in and when I did my statement, we talked to our local leadership and stuff. And at the time, I didn't know all the other stuff was taking place, other than there was some strange things that happened when I went back to do work on Monday. Was that I was told that they were dealing with it. They get back to us if they needed something from us. Leave it alone. I did. I went on with my life. But as far as my injuries go, I didn't feel well afterwards. Um, and I was looked at, and they didn't really understand it other than it could be a virus or something. They didn't really. I had some throat issues, some stuff, and they just treated it like they normally would and sent me on my way. I went back to the States, and that's when I got really sick one day, and I couldn't get back to the base when I needed to be. So I called them, and they said, go to the emergency room. When I went to the emergency room, they found this heart murmur. This doctor says, well, you have a really large heart murmur. What's the military say about it? Because you find out later I could never gotten in the military with this heart murmur. So all of a sudden I had this heart murmur, went back to the base. They immediately brought in a doctor from Wright-Patterson, which, by the way, I didn't know the ramifications of what Wright-Patterson meant at the time. He came in and evaluated me, had me immediately go to Wright-Patterson the next day, and ran all kinds of tests on me, and then said, well, you have an issue with your heart. We're going to monitor it, but it's nothing that needs to be addressed immediately now. And I went on my way. Then I started having more vision problems, which I got sent to Wolford Hall for. First thing that the doctor asked me, the specialist down there, who's a full board colonel involved in more details on eyes, he said, have you been exposed to radiation? And I looked at him and I said, not that I'm aware of, because again, I didn't really understand the ramifications of what took place. I just know what we saw couldn't be explained at the time. And I was told to leave it alone, and I was happy to, because it did seem to tie into possibly something from somewhere else, which at the time was taboo. You didn't want to touch that anyway.